This is directly a part of the open border policies. There is a man who lost his life. There's a family this morning because of Biden's open border policies. The same thing may be even more dangerous what happened in the synagogue situation up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Colleyville because of this. This was a terrorist. How did the federal government allow a terrorist to come in to the United States of America from another country? The way they allowed it to happen is because they are not exercising the authority or the strategy that's needed in ports of entry to make sure that terrorists do not get in. As we sit here right now, Maria, neither you nor I have any idea how many other terrorists have gotten into this country because of lapses by the Biden administration.
And I think you're finally seeing border agents, federal agents, are upset. We saw that meeting this week where an agent turned his back on Secretary Mayorkas. What are you hearing from the troops? How are they feeling, given the fact that they don't have the support and the resources that they need to do the job?
So I saw the story you're talking about, also where members of the Border Patrol, they turned their back on Secretary Mayorkas, right. But also they were complaining about the way the president is not supporting the Border Patrol, not giving them the resources or manpower they need to do their job. And so the president has left the Border Patrol in a deplorable condition. But let's go back to something I was involved in a couple of months ago. And that was another way in which the president disrespected the Border Patrol. You remember down in the Del Rio area, you had these Border Patrol officers on horses doing their best to do their job to secure the border. And Biden came out and said he was going to take them to task. He was criticizing them for using the horses. I stood up and I said, listen, if anything ever happens to those Border Patrol officers, as governor, I'm going to hire those Border Patrol to come work the border in the great state of Texas.
Well, I'm glad you raised this because I was just reading something about this a few minutes ago, and we are waiting on a report. Because when I saw that video and I saw these agents on horseback, there was no whipping that I could see. And I said, wait a minute, who is talking about whipping here? There was whipping going on by the Taliban in Afghanistan when there was the botched withdrawal. That's where the whipping was. But there wasn't any whipping that I could see. And yet we're supposed to get a report on this. It's been 4 months. When are you expecting that report?
Actually, never. And the reason is because, as you are articulating, I don't think anything bad is going to come out of the report. And so they don't want it to surface because obviously it's going to make the president and all the other complainers look so bad. So understand this, and that is the Border Patrol, they were using reins. You use reins on a horse to help move the horse around, to direct it where you want it to direct it, to be able to control the horse's movement. And that's exactly what the Border Patrol was doing. They weren't whipping anybody. And Biden came out immediately, impulsively, and said that these Border Patrol officers, they were whipping people, and they were not. There's zero proof of that whatsoever. Biden has never apologized for his falsehood that he perpetuated.
And those guys were working so hard to protect the border and to protect this country.
Right, putting their lives on the line.
Has Texas seen a change as a result of all of this? I know the economic side of the story, and I'm going to get to that in a moment because I know you've got a thriving situation in a number of areas. But how have things changed on the ground as a result of these open borders? Are you seeing differences in Houston, in Dallas, in the big cities? Are you seeing crime pick up?
Well, one thing I did early on that reduced the effect of it in Texas, the Biden administration wanted to use dozens of Texas licensed entities to stockpile all the illegal immigrants that were coming to the state of Texas. And I pulled all those licenses. And so they had no license locations to put all the illegal immigrants in. And as a result, a lot of these people, they're going elsewhere across the entire country. That's one reason why Biden is having to move them to other regions across the country. The greatest devastation that we see in our state is within 10 or 20 miles of the border, where so many homes are broken into, ranches are ripped apart, things like that. But the other thing that we are seeing is I'll give you two ways in which I personally have observed the devastation, but know of it more, and that is lives lost because of fentanyl, but also the human trafficking that's on the rise in Texas as well as other states. We see a lot of human trafficking in Houston, in Dallas, but they are there for a little while, then they move. Biden has never talked about or done anything to address human trafficking. I first raised it when they first tried to open a center in downtown Dallas. And I said, I want to be in there personally as governor to seek out anybody who may be a victim of human trafficking. The Biden administration said no.
And you've seen stash houses with people jammed in them, cars with so many people jammed in them to get over the border and get past agents, right?
So stashed into cars, stashed into things that you bury people in, and stashed into rail cars and things like that. And so the smugglers are getting more innovative. Because of that, one of the many laws I signed this past session in Texas, we signed a law to make it far easier to arrest and to convict smugglers, put them behind bars for felonies. Also, I'll add that I signed a new law in Texas that makes it a felony to either manufacture or distribute fentanyl. We had to come up with a new law to address fentanyl. So we have better tools available to law enforcement in Texas to be able to crack down on these illegal activities coming across the border.
You also came out with a new law about acquiring land. I want to talk about that because I was reading recently that China is buying up agricultural land here. What can you tell us?
So we learned exactly what you're saying. And that is that China had, either China really more often, it was business people who had a connection to the Chinese government. They were buying land. It was agriculture land. However, it was really used for the purpose of windmills of the land that connected into the power grid. And we said, wait a minute, we're not going to have anybody from China having any interconnection to the power grid. So we passed a law that assigned that makes sure that no country or business person connected with a country from China, Iran, North Korea, Russia, or any nation that's hostile to the United States can buy land that provides any type of connection to the power grid in Texas.
Unbelievable. And this is Texas that's doing this, not on the federal level. This is extraordinary.
Right. So it was Texas. So they were doing this around some of our military bases. And it was Texas that had to step up and protect the perimeter of our military bases, not the President of the United States.
That is extraordinary. I want to get your take on social media and how social media is a part of this story, because I understand that the Mexican cartels are luring young kids into being the getaway cars, into human trafficking. What is the story?
So this may be the most astonishing thing that we've seen arise out of this episode, because they are using TikTok to attract teens in Houston, in Dallas, and San Antonio to come help in the smuggling operation. And Texas is going to step up and take legal action against TikTok because they are being an accomplice to a crime of human trafficking. Anybody associated with TikTok needs to be far beyond ashamed. They need to be concerned about legal liability because they are now assisting human trafficking. TikTok is connected to human trafficking. No one should have any association with that entity anymore.
So, in other words, TikTok is making it easier to conduct human trafficking.
TikTok is promoting and assisting human trafficking in Texas.
I saw a few videos of a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, young boys. They were the getaway cars. They don't have driver's license. The truck tipped over. When the truck tipped over, they had about 12 people in the truck. So there's that. Well, they're the getaway cars.
You have that. You have so many other episodes like that. One was a horrible tragedy that occurred down here about a month ago where a woman and her daughter were in a car and they were T-boned by a smuggler on the getaway, and they were both killed and lost their lives. There is a funeral service ceremony in El Paso tonight about a Texas Department of Public Safety officer who was working with Border Patrol, riding in a truck with people they had just apprehended, and the truck tipped over and he lost his life. Lives are at risk. And again, we have a president who does not care about those people who are putting their lives on the line to keep our community safe for the sole reason that the president is not doing his job to keep our border secure.
You've been very successful in the lawsuits that this state has served, as well as the other AGs that are here today. Tell me a little about what you're doing in terms of using the court system to make a change.